1994 taping of It Happened in Grand Prairie, our history tape number 223 that will be playing during the week of May the 10th. We're very delighted to pre-tape a very, very special couple in Grand Prairie, Texas, long-time residents of our city, long-time contributors to the quality of life in our city. And we're so pleased to welcome Mr. and Mrs. K.N. Terrell. Mr. Terrell, welcome to the show today. We're glad to have you with us. And we are so glad that you brought along your beautiful wife, Laureen Terrell, who is so meaningful to many of us in Grand Prairie, as well as to you, young man. And to start our little history interview, to make this tape number 223 a real memorable thing, we're going to ask you, Mr. Terrell, to begin your genealogy by looking out into your camera right straight ahead of you here. And tell us the names of your parents and of your brothers and sisters, if you have them, and even though they may be deceased, we want you to put that on the record.
How I happen to be in Texas?
Yes?
Well, I was working in Arkansas, living in Arkansas, traveling, and a friend of mine was working for the company that I finally made application to and was hired in Dallas.
All right.
And that was in 1940, I believe. And I was in, you might say, limbo for a while, because I lived in first one hotel and the other there for months at a time there.
Yes.
Not married. And let's see, I was traveling extensively with the state of Texas. Then I met this young lady here in 1948.
1948, that's a good year.
1948. And we decided there that we liked each other at that time there, and we finally got married in 1948.
All right. Who are your parents?
My parents, both deceased now, Mr. and Mrs. Robert Terrell.
Okay.
Of Jackson, Mississippi.
All right. What was her maiden name, her full maiden name?
Molly.
Molly?
Yes.
All right. Now, and they were from Mississippi. Did they ever come to Texas?
One time, my mother came to visit for one day.
Okay.
I think that's the only time they were in Texas.
All right. How about brothers and sisters?
I had two sisters. Both are deceased.
Yes.
And they both lived in Mississippi the entire lifetime.
Would you give us their names?
My older sister, Thelma, and my younger sister, Dorothy.
All right. Now, where did you go to school as a young man, Mr. Terrell?
That's been a long time ago. I have to. Of course, I went to school first in Macomb, Mississippi, where I was born.
All right.
And moved to Jackson in 1919. And I went to school there until I graduated. And I've been to law school. I was at law school in Arkansas. And that's about the extent of it there.
All right. We're going to get back with you in just a minute. So now let's establish your genealogy, Laureen Terrell. Look out into your camera and tell us about your parents, would you?
My parents were from Montague County.
Okay.
My mother was Myrtle Whitley. My father, George Lewis Tucker.
Okay.
And they were married in 1906 and moved to Wichita Falls in about 1908. And there's where I was born.
To Wichita Falls. You want to tell us the magic year that you were born?
1910.
1910. Oh, that was a good year. And living in Wichita Falls, did you go to schools in Wichita Falls?
Yes.
Okay.
I did I had my schooling in Wichita Falls, and I wanted to go to North Texas and study piano. Mother and father would not permit me to leave home. So Mrs. Mahaffey, Alta Mahaffey was my piano teacher, and she said she could teach me anything that Mr. Shante could at North Texas, so I just stayed with her.
All right.
And then in 1946, my mother and my 2 children and I moved to Grand Prairie. I knew one couple. They lived on Southwest 5th, and I bought a house on Southwest 5th. And they were the only people I knew in Grand Prairie.
Would you like to name them?
Carl and Lorene Shamlin.
Okay.
And I was going to work in hopes I could continue my radio work. But I found out I had to belong to the union, Musicians Union, both in Dallas and Tarrant counties. So I decided against that.
All right. Now, let's get back to your schooling in Wichita Falls and the other part of your family. Did you have brothers and sisters?
I have 2 sisters.
Would you name them?
They're both still living.
All right.
Edna Patton and Ruth Martin.
And where do they live?
In Wichita Falls.
They still live in Wichita Falls. All right. And moving here to Grand Prairie, Texas, with 2 children, would you like to name the children?
Joe Dotson was the older, and Janet Dotson the younger.
And Janet, okay. Would you like to tell me a little bit about them and where they are now? And if they have children, that's your grandchildren. We've got to get them in the document.
That's right.
Okay.
Joe graduated from A&M and went into the service. And that was his livelihood. He died 3 years ago.
Nice.
Janet went to Texas Wesleyan, and she now lives in Flower Mound.
Okay, she lives in Flower Mound. Does she have children?
She has 2.
Would you like to name those?
Paul Young and Monica Young.
All right, and Monica, and so Janet is Janet Dodson Young, and she married someone named Young. Let's get him in this record.
Pat Young.
Okay, Pat Young, a very famous young man here in Grand Prairie, Texas, that was a gopher and all of the good things.
That's right, and he's now an Episcopal priest.
He is now an Episcopal priest. That is wonderful. Okay. Tell me a little bit about Monica and Paul.
Monica will graduate from a college in June.
All right.
And Paul is one of the paraplegic employees at the fire department in Louisville.
Okay.
He's married and has 1 stepchild.
Okay. Would you like to name that stepchild? Because
Chad.
Little Chad. Okay.
Now, getting back to my grandchildren,
Yes, let's do that.
Joe and Pam have 5 children.
They have 5 children. Wonderful. You want to name them?
The older is Alan,
Okay.
and he has a boy named Derek.
All right.
Then Steve
right.
Dodson, and he has a boy named Michael.
Okay.
A granddaughter, Terry Torn, Terry Halsey. There's nothing wrong with me today.
Okay.
And they have 2 children,
All right.
Rebecca and Ryan Joe.
Okay.
Van is married and has 1 stepchild.
All right.
I do not know his name, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
And the younger one is Chris, and he has 2 children.
Okay. That gives you lots of things to do at Christmas time and birthdays and all
That's
the
right.
good stuff, doesn't it?
That's right.
All right. Now, Laureen, having gotten you from Wichita Falls down to Grand Prairie with the 2 children and living on Southwest 5th Street, what happened to Laureen then?
I went to work at the First Methodist Church.
All right.
They said they didn't know whether I'd be the organist or the choir director,
I see.
and so they hired me, and I was the choir director.
The choir director at the First United Methodist Church in uptown Grand Prairie.
That's right.
All right. Before that, though, you had been into live radio shows in Wichita Falls, Huckleberry Pie, and all sorts of good stuff. Before you had a track record before you came to Grand Prairie, Texas,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
What did you do with the live radio shows in Wichita Falls?
I was the official accompanist for 4 years.
For 4 years.
And that was a period of time that we did not have cassettes or records. It was live orchestra. We had a concert orchestra, and out of the same group we had a dance orchestra. We had a string trio. Of course, we had soloists. And at the surrounding music clubs would bring in programs, and we would rehearse and broadcast.
All right.
And I had my own show, and that's just it.
That was wonderful. That was a wonderful start for a musician of your...
I had been teaching piano, and they needed a pianist, so Mr. Can asked me to just close up my studio and come down there and go to work, so I did.
That was wonderful. All right. The Grand Prairie Music Store, tell me about that.
Grace Barton had the music store in 1950.
All right.
And she hired me as one of the clerks.
One of the clerks there. And were you also the choir director at the First United Methodist Church during that same period?
I have been either the choir director or the organist. We moved to Kansas in 1950. And Bob Horton became the organist.
All right.
And Earl Tom Keel was the choir director.
Choir director, okay.
And then when we returned from Kansas, I was the organist again.
Okay.
Until 1962.
Okay.
And then we joined the Episcopal Church.
All right. Now, you have been in the Epsilon Sigma Alpha, and you hold the 5th degree in the Pallas Athene. The Alpha Gamma of Grand Prairie, you were their first president. Tell me, where did all this good community service lead you?
Well, when we came back from Kansas, I had a very dear friend who was the chaplain, state chaplain of the sorority, and she asked, could I play for her? And they gave me the permission to. And thereafter, each president asked for her own pianist, and each has asked for me all of these years. I've been a member 41 years, and I was the pianist for 39.
39 of the 41 years you have been the pianist for that state organization. Oh, I think that's wonderful.
And for 5 years, international level.
Oh, at the international level. All right. Now, when you were into all of the good stuff here in Grand Prairie music-wise, I have down here Jeep High Capers in the 50s. What brought you into that scene other than Earl Tom Keel? Okay, Mr. Keel, Mr. Music.
Mr. Music.
Yes, yes.
And I was at the piano or the organ for all of those until 1967 when we moved to Houston.
For how long?
11 years.
For 11 years in Houston, but then you've been organist for several Grand Prairie churches. Other than the First United Methodist, I'd like for you to name them.
Well, I was organist at St. Andrew's Episcopal Church.
All right.
And I have helped out at other churches as assistant.
Okay, I think that's just wonderful. And you're a member of the Arts Council here in Grand Prairie, Texas, right? Great supporter. And I believe they honored you last Friday evening.
They certainly did, with this beautiful medal.
All right. And I believe you received the very first award, and let's talk about that award. That's one of the reasons I wanted you to document all of this good stuff. It says, Achievement Award presented to Laureen Terrell for a lifetime leadership and contributions in the performing arts, presented by the Grand Prairie Arts Council, April the 29th, 1994. And the reigning president of that is Mr. Chuck Edwards,
right.
A very good friend of not only you as the Terrells, but also I believe you're into the Edwards family through Chuck's parents. You knew
That's
Chuck's
right.
parents. Do we have a picture of Chuck's parents and your being with them at a time?
They're right there.
Let's put that right on the front of this and see if we can't hold that up for it. Mr. Terrell, would you be our, and hold that up so the camera could get a shot of that, and
Try to hold it up.
hold it up right like this. Put it right up there near that beautiful award, and then we'll see if we can get a shot of the award and the
Can't tell
photograph.
anything about the light from here.
That's Mr. and Mrs. Joe Edwards, and is that at their lake house?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
There they are.
Oh, that is wonderful. And I believe not only did you get this an award, but I believe the mayor signed a proclamation and made that your day, and is it in this? We better show off your proclamation as well as that wonderful. Yes, let's get that. All right.
The simplest thing to do is just bring them out here.
Yes, let's just bring out all of our good stuff. Oh, isn't this wonderful how many awards you have here? Here's one that was done by Ann Gresham, a
Yes.
former mayor. Would you hold that here? And here's one by the Honorable Jerry DeBow, who was a former mayor. 2 former mayors have cited you. Here's a commendation from Mr. Earl Tom Keel. Here is another. This is from the Epsilon Sigma Alpha International Council. They have given you a commendation there, a certificate of appreciation. This is another one. That is, I think that's just wonderful. But now we're going to get to the mayor's proclamation, aren't we?
It's there.
All right, let's hold that one up. The Honorable Mayor Charles England named last Friday the Laureen Terrell Day in Grand Prairie, Texas.
Yes.
And I think Mr.
complete
Terrell and I ought to clap, shouldn't we? Isn't that wonderful?
A complete surprise. My daughter really fooled me.
Yes, yes.
I had to fuss with her because she told stories.
Oh, she did. How did she get, what disguise did she use?
This was her 40th anniversary of her graduation from high school,
I see.
and I just had to be there.
And you had to be that to see her get applauded.
That's
I
right.
see. And so she got you out to the Earl Tom Keel Theater last Friday night, and I was in attendance, and I thought that was so exciting. And
It really was.
And the city of Grand Prairie is so proud of you because you have contributed significantly, not only to the music and everything, but I've got to go over some more things. Let's put these things aside for just a minute and talk a little bit about your being the pianist for just several clubs here in town. Let's talk about the clubs you've worked with.
Well, years ago there was a Kiwanis club for
Yes.
which I played.
Yes.
And I started playing for Rotary clubs in Wichita Falls. And so when I came down here, Pat Young, Daddy Pat, asked me to be the pianist at Rotary Club.
All right.
So I was until we moved to Houston, and when I came back, they asked me again, so I'm still the pianist for.
You are still the reigning pianist for the Grand Prairie Friday Rotary Club
That's
now?
right, yes.
How about Tuesday Rotary?
Well, that was organized from the Friday Club, and I play for that.
And you all meet at Woodcrest Country Club?
Right.
And the other meets in Uptown Grand Prairie down at the Veterans Memorial Center?
Yes.
I think that's wonderful.
You know, I think it is unusual for anyone to receive an award like I have because they've done things they like to do.
And that's your favorite,
That's
doing
my
music?
favorite, just music.
Yes, yes. I think that's just so wonderful. Now, we have that you're a member of the Grand Prairie Music Teachers Association, and you've been their president.
Uh-huh.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I was the first president, and then when we moved back from Houston, I was another president. But I'm just an ordinary member.
Just an ordinary member. Now, you're not an ordinary member. You're an extraordinary member of an ordinary club here in town. So let's get specific. All right, let's see, what do we have here? We have some more good show and tell stuff. What is this that you have here?
This is some pictures. This is a picture of Ken's daughter.
Oh, this is a picture of Ken's daughter. I don't know that we can pick that up with that nice, shiny surface that we have there. Yeah, we're doing pretty good, aren't we? We're picking up the one below.
Now, this
that's
is my
the
oldest
one.
great-grandchild.
All right, you have your oldest great-grandchild, and let's see something else. Who
And
are those?
That's brother and sister.
That's the brother and sister. Okay.
Now, let's see what we have here.
What's above it?
That's my younger sister.
Oh, that's your younger sister.
And both my sisters.
Both of your sisters. We're going to get your family on here in spite of everything, aren't we?
And here's the granddaughter's children.
All right, let's see if we can find some more of those big pictures. Well, I think we can show those off a little
There's
bit
my
better.
daughter-in-law.
All right, there's our daughter-in-law, and isn't that good? Okay, let's do some more show and tell here for a few minutes while we have the camera clued in on this. Okay.
That's Monica.
All right, there's Monica.
Hard to recognize these upside down.
Yes, I'm trying to get one that's pretty clear here. We're going to flip through these, and you'll have to put this on still when you go through these on your videotape, because we've gotten lots of good ones here. Oh, isn't that wonderful?
My niece.
And that's your niece.
There is a couple.
That's the real thing, isn't it?
That's
all right. Now let's show this picture. I think you all had this for a very special occasion, didn't you?
Yes.
All right. What is that one? Let's see if we can get that.
This was done for our church directory.
For the church directory. That is very, very
I think
good.
It's a very nice picture.
Yeah, very nice picture. All right. Do you have any other pictures you'd like to show and tell?
My son and daughter-in-law.
All right. That's your son and daughter-in-law. Isn't that one good? Mm-hmm. Okay, now there's a special certificate we have over there that we missed in our presentation. What on earth is that?
This is interesting.
Tell us about that, would you, Lorraine?
Certificate of Honor. This certifies that Lorraine Tucker made a perfect score in the music memory contest given by the Wichita Falls Public Schools May 31st, 1922.
1922. Let's hold that up and see if we can get a picture of that, of one of your very first certificates.
That's my very first.
And that was for music, right?
Right.
Oh, I think that is so wonderful. 1922. Oh,
I was
that's
12 years old.
That's 52 years ago, exactly, isn't it? Or so, if we can subtract in our old age here. Okay, what else are we showing?
The Metro Club, Metro Rotary Club.
Oh, and they've given you a certificate for.
Yes.
For the. Did they know about this special award that you had the other day?
Yes.
On Friday, and this was for that. Oh,
no, this was 1991.
Oh, they've been honoring you then for a couple of years or
Oh,
four,
yes.
hadn't they?
And the Grand Prairie Club has made me a Paul Harris Fellow.
Oh, that takes big bucks.
Yes.
Oh, $1,000 has been contributed in your honor to be a
Right.
Paul Harris Fellow for the Rotary Club of Friday.
That's right.
All right, let's see what we have here. We don't want to miss anything that is absolutely...
A picture of my son-in-law in his clericals.
All right, in his clericals. Let's hold that up and see if we can clue in
Here
on
he
that
is,
a little
and
bit.
Here he is.
Yes. Isn't that wonderful?
These are all mixed up, so there's the daughter.
If we just kind of flip through this, there's not much telling what we'll see.
No.
Okay. If we'd had a little advance notice, we might have been able to go through all of those, wouldn't we? All right. Have we seen that list, Ms. Terrell?
I don't believe so.
Kind of flip through there and see.
Yeah, this is the great-grandchildren.
This is all of the great-grandchildren.
This is the Texas aggregation at one of the international conventions.
Oh, of your sorority? Oh, that is good. Just tell them they're on your history tape, because look on our monitor up there. We've already picked them up. Isn't that good?
Very good.
Isn't that excellent? Yes, they're going to go down in history on your history tape. And there's one that's following in your footsteps, because he's playing the piano. Is he a great-grandbaby?
He's a great-grandbaby.
Okay.
He was 3 years old May the 1st. His sister was 6 years old May the 1st. And my oldest great-grandchild was 9 years old the 1st of May.
Mercy, that made his very special date. You have to spend all of your allowance just for that one time, don't you? Okay. We don't want to miss anything that's important here. Is that a special grandson or great-grandson?
That's the oldest one.
That's the oldest one. Oh, that is wonderful. Well, now we have a few more minutes, so now let's talk a little bit more to Mr. Terrell, just a little bit. Mr. Terrell, what do you do besides being a taxi for this wonderful young lady? What do you do with your time?
Well, I'm charter member of the Honeydew Club.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
you
good.
know, honeydew this and honeydew that.
Yes, all right.
I keep pretty busy over at the church,
All right.
St. Andrews.
St.
Church.
Andrews Episcopal. Okay.
That plus the yard and taking care of her and looking after her is just about all I do right now.
That's a full-time job for someone that's retired, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, I think that's wonderful. Mr. Terrell, if you had another place to pick to live, would you still choose Grand Prairie, Texas as a wonderful place to retire and spend some of...
Well, we like Grand Prairie. We've been away from Grand Prairie 2 different times. One time in Houston for 11 years.
Yes.
And one time in Kansas for 3 years. We always came back.
What took you to Kansas?
Pardon?
What took you to Kansas?
My company sent me up there.
Your company?
The company that I was with at that time there.
And what were you doing for a living about that time?
I was in insurance claims,
Good. That's good.
both in Kansas and also
In Houston?
in Houston there.
That's good. All right. I think that's wonderful.
But we like Grand Prairie. We always came back.
As Joe said, Mother, if we hadn't moved to Grand Prairie, I wouldn't have met Pam, and Janet wouldn't have met Pat, and you wouldn't have met Ken.
That's right. So Grand Prairie was a magic place
Magic
for
place
all of
for
those
us.
meetings, wasn't it? All right. Laureen, I'd like for you to look out into your camera and talk to the young ladies and young gentlemen that might be thinking about being into music or to radio. And since we have about 1 more minute, we'd like for you to kind of wrap it up, but you're giving them an exhortation.
Well, what I would like to do is to help them to realize that if they practice their piano and learn music, it's something they can enjoy all their lives. So oftentimes it's the parents that want the children to play, but I want the children to want to play. They are the ones who really enjoy it.
You have taught hundreds and hundreds of boys and girls piano in Grand Prairie, Texas. Who is your most famous student?
Well, I don't know that I have a most famous student, but I do have one that lives in Arlington that was a teacher, that is a teacher.
Would you name?
Cheryl Nugent, it was before she married. Cheryl Harris now.
Okay.
And I do not know what some of them are doing, but I know that she's teaching. And when she went to college, she studied organ as well as piano, and then she took up flute.
Well, I want to thank both of you all for taking the time to come today, and especially for the salute of the Laureen Terrell Day by the Grand Prairie Arts Council, by the mayor, by the Rotary Club, and everyone else. And Brother Ken, you were real sweet to get her out last Friday night along with the family. And thank y'all for being on the show today.
You are so welcome. Enjoyed it.
And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do.